Mount Pleasant Public School Board of Education for the regular meeting held July 18, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. in the high school cafeteria. This meeting of the Mount Pleasant Public School Board of Education is a meeting conducted in the public but is not a meeting of the public. There is a time and place for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. The purpose of today's meeting is to conduct regular business that requires action by the board. These items may include those discussed at the previous meeting or presented to the board for discussion this evening. As a courtesy, please silence your cell phones and stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next is the Indigenous Land Acknowledgement Statement. Mount Pleasant Public Schools is honored to acknowledge the Anishinaabe people whose traditional land we are gathered on today. To recognize the Anishinaabe people and the ancestral land is our expression of gratitude and appreciation and a way of honoring the Indigenous people who have been living and working on this land since time immemorial, and whose land on which the Saginaw, Chippewa, and Meeting tribe have resided and have continued to reside on for centuries. We feel it is important to understand the long-standing history of this land and to seek to understand our place within that history. Next is roll call.
Dana Coggins.
Here.
Courtney Stegman. Here. Jessica Dragon. Here. Sheila Murphy. Here. William Campbell. Here. Tim Odeker.
Here.
Amy Beth. Here.
Next is the approval of the agenda. Does anybody have anything they'd like to add or change? Okay. Moving on, we have the Student Board of Education representative report.
We do not have this evening.
Okay, so summer months. All right, next that moves us into the superintendent report.
Good evening, everyone. I just have a few areas that I wanted to update you on. Excuse me. First of all, I wanted to provide you all with a quick update on our summer programs. Our summer programs are actually going quite well. We have a large number of participation. First of all, at the elementary level, we have 86 students across our 5 elementary buildings that are participating in PEAK through a scholarship program through the Mount Pleasant Public Schools. So they're attending PEAK all day, every day for 6 weeks. During that time, they get to fully participate in all the PEAK activities, including all the fun events, field trips, and that kind of thing. But they also have a dedicated time each morning where they're being pulled out for academic intervention and support. So the program is going quite well. The academic piece is staffed by our certified staff members that teach in the elementary level. So it's sort of compared to a title pull-out where they're working closely with those students during the 6-week summer program. We're providing transportation for those students. So you may have seen our buses around. That's because they're transporting those students. And then they also, they're receiving, like I said, going on all the field trips, all the fun extra events, and then they have breakfast and lunch provided to them through the PEAK program. So we're really excited to be able to offer that program for them so that it's not only academic enhancement, but also just a fun summer activity for them as well. In addition to that, all of our elementary students did go home with a Scholastic book pack, and I put a little bit more information on that slide for you to see more about the books that they were able to take home with them. And then all of our elementary buildings are doing a mobile book events. So you likely have seen them advertised on our social media. They all have a different twist depending on their mascot, but I think Gators on the Go was our first version of it, and we've expanded every year. So this flyer shows you the dates for Falcons on the Fly and Mustangs on the Move, but everybody has a summer book mobile event in their neighborhood where they're able to go and participate. And again, they're combining that with other fun things, carnival style food and different treats and things like that for the students. So it's been heavily attended, and those events go through the end of July. At the secondary level, we offered 2 3-week sessions. One was the first 3 weeks in June after school got out. The second one is the 3 weeks in July that just started last week. In June, we had 100 students participate, and combined they completed 115 courses on Odysseyware. And for the second session, we have 81 students. When I got this information from Jeff Platty on Friday, he said already in the first week, 14 courses were completed. So now that's likely classes that were started during the first session, and then they just were able to wrap them up during the first week of the second session. But we're happy to have that success. They are also offering a third session of summer programming, and that will be 2 weeks in August. And the students that have been invited to that program are students going into 9th grade. So to help with that transition, they will do some academic work, but it will also be work where they're learning the building, figuring out where their locker is, mapping out their schedule, and doing those kinds of things to help them transition to Mount Pleasant High School. So once all of our summer programs are wrapped up in September, I will have an administrator from the high school and an administrator from the elementary buildings come and give you a full update, but I wanted to give you a midway update on how things are going this summer. Next, just to talk about our bond projects. As you know, we're knee-deep in the projects that we thought we could begin and complete this summer. So right now we are almost done with replacing the roofs at Rosebush School and at Fancher School. There is one section of the roof at Fancher that we were not able to get all the supplies that we need. That's the section that has slate tiles. And so that section will be completed next summer, but the rest of it will be completed this summer. They're working on a large expansion of the storage barn and Community Memorial Stadium. And you may have noticed our new parking lot off of Preston Street. That will provide ADA parking for our softball and baseball fields as well as our tennis courts. We're also very busy in planning our future projects. Those projects will begin throughout this school year and then they'll continue into next summer. And that includes additions at Mount Pleasant High School and at Mount Pleasant Middle School for our weight room facilities for both instructional and athletic use. And Mount Pleasant Middle School will also have a large bank of offices. Right now they're running out of office space. In addition, we'll be working on parking and pickup and drop off at Mount Pleasant Middle School. We know that's been an area of concern over the years. So we've got some engineers working on better designs for that. And then we'll also be working on our air handling systems at our elementary buildings. So that work will continue. This summer, our technology work, those folks are actually working ahead of schedule. Kind of a unique situation. So they already have all of the wires laid for the new camera systems. So as soon as those cameras arrive, they will begin installing those systems. It is a completely separate system, so we will continue to run the current system all the way through until the new system is completely installed, and then we can just flip a switch over. So our coverage, we will never be without coverage in our buildings, but it is likely that the entire system won't be ready until after school starts. Our one-to-one devices continue to roll in. We just received 600 more devices at the end of last week. So our technology department is doing a great job of prepping them, getting the ones that we currently have cleaned and ready to go. And we'll have additional information to share with families at the beginning of August as far as the launch of the program and that kind of thing goes. So not necessarily a bond project, but one other thing I wanted to update you on. We have launched our new website. It is still very much a work in progress. So if you look at it and say, oh, it looks like this isn't quite working or this link isn't perfect, and we're still going through training, but we're really excited about the look of the website and the ease of use for our students and community members. Coming soon, we will have more information regarding Mount Pleasant Public Schools app. If you go to your app store now, you can find the app, but again, there's not much content loaded onto it until we're able to actually launch that entirely. Once we do, that app will be the source for notifications. So families can select a particular building or the district. They can receive notifications regarding cancellations, attendance, all those kinds of things. Also, the menu will be built right on there and all of our events. So we're really excited about the website and the app and the amount of communication it will provide to our families. So, does anybody have any questions regarding our summer projects? It's been busy. Can't believe it's already in the middle of July. Next, we just want to congratulate one of our business office staff members. Christy Brennan did receive her business office specialist certification, and you do have a letter from MSBO in your board packet this evening congratulating and recognizing Christy for that recognition. So it's about 90 hours of work, and we're definitely very appreciative that all of our staff takes those certifications very seriously. The next item under my report is a follow-up from a previous discussion that we had back in June. We were looking at the number of applications under the Sex Ed Advisory Board membership process. And I think at the time that we had a meeting, Jessica wasn't able to attend, so we sort of tabled the discussion, but then didn't get back to it last month like we should have. So I apologize for that. But just, I believe the Sex Ed Advisory Board is looking for guidance from this board regarding the number of folks to invite to join the board. And when they're correct me if I'm wrong, I think we advertised for 4 positions and we had 20-some applicants. 21. So I know 2 of the 4 positions that are open, those 2 folks reapplied. I think Kate Connors was asking for our feedback as a board regarding how many additional seats we should have on the board.
And I think, Delphine, it's a lot of history that I think historically we have always replaced our open seats. And we've never been in the dilemma of having so many applicants. So, you know,
How many
there's
do we
that.
currently have on the board?
12 has been a traditional number.
And so with replacing 4 seats, we would continue to have 12 members.
Right.
And we meet all of the state required criteria for our membership, right?
For the number of parents, teachers, clergy, those are all requirements that we follow, and those are all easily met.
Okay, did Kate have a feeling, would they like more? Because I know when I served on that committee, we rarely had 12 people there. Would they like us to increase the number so that they have better participation? Or does she want to keep it? I mean, really, some feedback from them would be necessary to make that. I mean, I could see where we could up the number if they were comfortable with that, simply because I know participation tends to be a little back and forth with the numbers.
Yeah, and first of all, I would like to thank everybody for, having that conversation without me and for making it possible for me to come back and contribute as the board's representative to the Sex Ed Advisory Board.
use the mics, please?
I'm trying, Ms. Pat.
Thanks.
To Sheila's point, I have never been in a meeting where everyone was there, so that is a good point. I also recall, some conversation at the first time this was discussed at the board that, we don't want to create a situation in which, we have 1 year with extraordinary interest and then, try to set new standards and then that doesn't happen again. I do think that the chairs of the board would like to have an official cap of 12. I think they would like us to, as the school board, mandate that. I was not comfortable bringing that to the board, just making that ask, because I felt like the board needed more information, especially since this has been an unusual year in a lot of ways on the Sex Ed Advisory Board. I personally would like to be able to take advantage of some of the renewed interest. I would particularly like to see more members of the medical community on board. I think it would be a shame to, replace, just add 2 new people when we essentially have, more than 20 people who are interested. So I really feel like it should be possible for us to find a manageable number that is somewhere between 12 and 36.
Can we leave it somewhat open so that, in a year where there's a lot of interest, we increase the number, but don't make it a mandate to have 16, 20 members so that, if the interest does decrease, it doesn't need this board stuff.
Right.
And so I think we could say a minimum of 12 and maybe set a max number and then let them then, decide. I think we talked about several strategies on how to work rollovers or a lottery system or something so it's fair and people that want to participate have an opportunity.
And I mean, Kate mentioned this, because even though I wasn't at that meeting, I watched the video of the meeting, and, Kate mentioned that it is kind of a balance between having people with institutional knowledge and having some, fresh voices and fresh perspectives. From my experience on the Sex Ed Advisory Board, I feel like now would not be a bad time to add some new voices, but that's just my perspective. And I know whatever number we pick is probably going to end up being kind of arbitrary. although I did do some research into like, what's a good number for deliberative bodies like that. So, personally, I feel like anything more than 20 is getting unmanageable. But even if we just upped it to 15, if we could get a little bit, be able to take advantage of some of that new interest.
If you did 15, that would be approximately 4 new voices in addition to the 2 renewals, right?
And
So the only thing we have to be careful of, so one, I also was the chair of the Sex Ed Advisory Committee. So I think it was me, then Sheila, and then you, Jason, over the past years or so, whatever. I think 15 is going to get big, and we have to be careful as we don't have to say like a majority vote type of thing, right? If people aren't coming, right, that also makes it very difficult to have a conversation because information's given out, and then they come and then they want the information that they missed at the last board meeting. It was one of the issues that we had a lot was, keeping people who want to be engaged being engaged as they do it. And if we increase it too much, that pool might grow and it be a little bit more challenging, especially with the state's mandated of clergy, teachers, administrator, public, someone in the health field. So it's very broad. We've often had nurses in that role. I think one year we had something from the health department actually. And someone from the university in the area.
So can we set like just a bracket like from 12 to 15?
So the law is a minimum seats, so there's no maximum.
Well, that's the law. The whole point of Kate asking us is she would like us to create a cap so that we don't continue to have this issue. And again, I know it's not really been an issue in the past because of lack of interest. So, but I think Kate was, and the other chair, were looking, and Linda, you can speak to this too if I'm getting this wrong, but they were like, yikes, we don't really know what to do. We would like the board, like it's not a state mandate, it's us as the board deciding what the cap is. So that she doesn't have to do it.
I do like the minimum, and does it need to be an even or an odd number? I mean, voting wise, I don't think there's ever too much of a problem that way. I'd like to keep the minimum at 12 and do the cap. Now, if we cap it, do they feel like they have to bring that many people in? So if you cap it at 20, are they going to bring it up to 20? Or if you cap it, do you understand what I'm saying? I don't want them to feel if we cap it that they have to fill all those spots.
Well, no, I mean, I think that's the point of having a spread, right?
Right.
So, and there will be some decision making that has to go on because I believe, I'm pretty sure this is correct, at least half the members have to be parents. So, if we add a medical person who isn't also a parent, then, we're going to have to add another parent to just keep that ratio intact.
So we want to make sure we give enough flexibility for them to work with.
Yeah.
The other thing to keep in mind is they're all rotational seats, so we don't have a large group coming in and out at any one time.
Right.
If we bump up to 20, that's a lot of new rotational seats to manage.
Oh, I think 20 is too many. I tend to be like the 15 or 16.
I like the 15, 12, 15 window. I think that's, and that kind of a group getting much more than 15 that's a lot of people.
Well, yeah, I know, we had trouble even just getting the 12 filled.
Yeah.
And so that would be, and I think what they're looking for is if they got 20 people in and they have to, knock some down, that instead of, if they think 20 is unmanageable and 15 is better, then what we're doing is basically saying you have to fill, 3 more seats. I mean, if we capped it at 20, I think that they would feel like they would have to fill those 20 because enough people came. Where if we cap it at 15, then they're good. They can add their 3 and.
Well, let me ask this then. Given the level of interest that there currently is amongst parents, other caregivers, and community members, can we ask Kate if she is willing to come in more with some regularity to talk about what the Sex Ed Advisory Board is doing? Or can should I make more regular, presentations about what we're doing? I just feel like people can still be engaged by coming to these meetings or by just finding out what's going on. They might not have they wouldn't have voting input, but they would still have share their views.
It
And the
would
school
be
board
nice
meeting.
to have some kind of a report on our website.
Or much like we do
Because
with-
they meet, what, 4 times a year?
or much like we do with the PSC, maybe have a web page for them, and then people know who the members are, and then you have access to those members also on the school board, right? The community members can go talk to certain people that they may know and feel comfortable talking with about.
And also they can post their agendas and what was discussed that day. That would be phenomenal. I think the more involvement and the more
I believe that most of that information is out there, but we can verify that and make sure that it's updated.
I mean, it's there, but it's not necessarily easy to find.
It is, that's what I'm
Which
hoping.
is the
the
whole
new
reason for
website-
our new website,
Yeah.
right, for sure,
And that's what
for
I'm saying,
sure.
I haven't looked on it their way, but I will tell you honestly, the old website, it was like, and I knew where to go and I still had problems.
I agree
finding it.
wholeheartedly. That's why we have a new one coming.
Yes, so I was thrilled to see that.
I think it would make sense to make a recommendation to the Sex Ed Advisory Board that this board would like to see their membership between 12 and 15 members. And then that gives them the flexibility to review the applications that they have. It actually, my math was a little off, it actually would give them 2 returning members and 5 new members to get us right up to the 15. Because if they have 4 seats open now, so there would be 5 new voices there. So that would
And
be a
if for
nice
any
group.
reason they decided they wanted more, they could always come and ask for more. But that way, that'll give them to see if that's manageable, see if it actually works out better because more people are showing up that, so.
And just make sure the rotational idea is
Yes.
incorporated.
Yeah, so we might want to do for this first year, the lottery idea. And then
It seemed like Kate was on favor too, and wanted to keep it as open as possible.
that makes sense to me.
Yeah,
Any other comments?
do we have to vote on this?
I think it's a recommendation. I mean, we certainly could, although we would do that under new business, not under my report.
Okay, I just didn't know if we had to or not.
Well, I mean, let's make it a recommendation as of today, and then if we determine that it has to be something we vote on and make a rule, then we'll try to do that at our next meeting.
I mean, I'm hearing consensus
Yes.
from everyone? Okay, great. Next item under my report is 2 new Neola policies, so I'll turn it over to Linda.
For our policy updates this month, we have a drug-free workplace policies, number 312201 for professional staff and 412201 for support staff. We realized that these 2 policies did not match up with our current 142201, which is our drug-free policy for administration. So these 2 policies are replacement policies, which will then help us have all of our drug-free workplace policies consistent. That makes sense.
Any questions for Linda? So this is a first reading. We'll put this again on our next meeting's agenda. Should you have any questions about the policies between now and then, feel free to reach out to Linda so she can research and get answers for you. And then just wrapping up.
I did have
I'm
one
sorry.
question on this. When this is talking about illicit drugs and alcohol, is cannabis under this?
That's something that has been part of the protocol, and that will still be part of the protocol for any safety-sensitive positions.
Okay, thank you.
So just a couple quick announcements to wrap up my report. I wanted to make sure that the public is aware that we do have 2 seats open on our Board of Education. Each seat is a 6-year term, and those applicants that are interested in running for school board need to apply with the Isabella County Clerk by July 26th at 4 p.m. And there's a couple different options for application that they will walk through with you. I also wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that we are still hiring. We have lots of positions available, although Linda is interviewing like crazy and assembling teams and doing a great job of onboarding our new folks. But we do have positions open for teachers, paraprofessionals, bus drivers, and our food service staff. And I've included the link there to get additional information on our openings. And then finally, it's never too soon to start planning, so we just wanted to make sure that everyone has the dates for our upcoming open houses, which will be here in about a month. So we can all take some deep breaths. You'll see there the open house schedule, and that's already been widely shared, and we'll continue to share that with our families so that everyone is ready to go for our back to school week. Our first day with students is Monday, August 22nd. Any questions for me?
Good evening. Excuse me. I have for you the requested financial reports for general fund and special service funds, comparing actual to budget for the month of June 2021 and June 2022. For general fund, I'll just preface this with, this is another one of those kind of wonky months where when you're looking at the 2021 data, it's all final, everything through basically August and audited. When you're looking at the 22 data, we're still in the process of going through all of our accruals and wrapping up the year end. So these numbers for June will change by the time we're ready for our audit. But as it stands right now, our revenue is at 76% of budget this year compared to 78% last year. We actually have received more revenue this year compared to last year, but the budget's larger. And the 76% of budget will definitely grow because we still have to accrue the July and August state aid payments and any other grant income and different things we are receiving in July and August that actually are for the 21-22 school year. Same thing for expenditures. Currently, we're at 83% of budget compared to 88% last year. The 83 will grow as we continue to accrue salaries and benefits and different expenditures that are coming in that were actually for the 21-22 school year. Same thing with our special service funds, but currently our athletics or our self-sustaining sports revenue is at 62% of budget compared to 50% last year. Expenditures are at 55% of budget compared to 45% last year. Our Children's Learning Center revenue is at 101% of budget compared to 99% last year, and expenditures are at 66% of budget compared to 88% last year. For our nurse testing program, we will never have revenue in that program again. We're spending down fund balance. Expenditures are at 1% of budget this year compared to 0% last year. For our food service program, revenue is at 93% of budget compared to 92% last year, and our expenditures are at 86% both years. For our school store, revenue is at 85% of budget this year compared to 53% last year, and expenditures are at 79% of budget compared to 43% last year. For our treasurer's report and general fund, as of May 31st, we had a cash balance of $6 million. We had receipts in the month of June of $4.7 million and disbursements of $4.4 million. That brings us a balance on June 30th of $6.4 million. For our debt retirement funds, on May 31st, we had a cash balance of $326,000. For the month of June, there was almost $28,000 of revenue and no disbursements. That brings us a balance on June 30th of $354,000. And for our capital projects fund, on May 31st, we had $25.8 million. We had receipts in the month of June of $19,000 and disbursements of $236,000. That brings us a balance on June 30th of $25.6 million. Any questions? Thank you. We're working on it right now. They're officially in the building the second week of August for the whole week. We've already had a couple dates where they were here for our preliminary audit, and we're all working very hard on getting all of the year wrapped up and accrued back and getting everything finalized.
Okay, next that brings us to correspondence. We have received correspondence from Bree Mogenberg. Next comes a citizen's request to address the board on any agenda or non-agenda item. As usual, this has a 3-minute limit. You'll be called up to approach the board. You can take the microphone, and Tim will give you your warning at 3 minutes. With that, let's start with Heather Beardsley.
Hi, I'm Heather Beardsley with Mount Pleasant, 3 children. Thank you, Mount Pleasant Board and staff, for all the work that you do for our community. I appreciate you. Gender identity is such an important aspect of how we identify ourselves as humans. Students can't learn about the sciences without discussing gender. Students can't fully discuss literature without also discussing gender politics. History, gotta discuss gender. You get the idea. Gender can't be separated from any discipline involving some element of the human condition, nor should it. As you continue to do the important work that you do, let's continue to be fully inclusive, including accurate history and true, honest representation of all our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Julie Rocker.
I just wanted to share something. Our students in Mount Pleasant Public Schools have many responsibilities in academics, sporting, and homeland responsibilities. Do we really want to turn our place of education into sexuality for children? I picked up a child from Bayshore from school not long ago when the school was in session, and she really couldn't grasp what that actually meant. When the child entered my car, she stated that she was bisexual. That was something new. And then I asked her, I said, well, how did you come to that conclusion? And she said that she learned in a small group class that if you love your girlfriends, then you were bisexual. And I learned last night also from another parent, this happened to another child. These two children do not know each other. They're in separate grades, so this has to be occurring, I'm assuming, through this world. So I furthered our discussion and I explained to her, at her level, what type of a relationship is included with that. And she said, oh, I'm definitely not bisexual, but I do love my girlfriends. Children should not be questioning at that age or worrying about whether or not they're bisexual, gay, or lesbian. Once a child's in high school, they are required to take a health class which covers sexual education, topics like safe sex, condoms, abstinence. They're reserved for our young adults. Then why is sexuality needed to be taught at a younger age? This is a confusing topic even for some adults. We do not need to confuse our children. These are fragile times of development, and we must let our kids be kids. By nature, they will discover who they are all on their own.
Thank you. Next is Bree Mogelberg.
Stacy's actually going to begin, if that's okay. She was next.
Hi, I'm Stacy Pratt, Mount Pleasant Moms for Liberty, Isabella County, Michigan, Vice Chair. Tonight we are here in efforts to seek a solution to the division that is taking place in our schools in regards to sexuality and gender content. With the recent event and booking of a sexual predator, our students, parents, and community want to see efforts made available to assist young people with sexuality and gender knowledge while at the same time making sure that parental rights are put in perspective and respected with our children. Moms for Liberty, Isabella County, Michigan has hence created the following resolution. Resolution concerning sexuality and gender education and promotion in Michigan public schools. Whereas state of Michigan law establishes the role of parents in their child's education and ensures a positive environment within the public schools that serve the needs of pupils, and whereas 380.10, rights of parents and legal guardians, duties of public schools. Section 10 states it is the natural, fundamental right of parents and legal guardians to determine and direct the care, teaching, and education of their children. The public schools of the state serve the needs of the pupils by cooperating with the pupils' parents, and legal guardians to develop the pupils' intellectual capabilities and vocational skills in a safe and positive environment. And whereas parents and legal guardians, further referred to as parents, have the rights to direct their children's instruction and to prevent them from promotions that are against their will and for the direction of their care, teaching, and education of their children, without penalty to their child, and whereas we acknowledge that being an American pupil is a title that can carry many varied attributes, including beliefs, values, religions, and lack thereof, and whereas we acknowledge that the public school system should offer a neutral belief and value system with general education and success of the pupils being the priority while still offering varied beliefs and value options to our diverse American student population. And
Bree Mogenberg, Mount Pleasant, Mounts for Liberty, Chapter Chair. Whereas sexuality and gender are important topics that deeply refer to one's identity, and it is a deep conversation to take place with parental guidance, and such instruction and discussion should be made available to Americans that choose so for their children. And whereas sexuality and gender are defined as characteristics and behaviors involving genitalia and attractions to, whether it be physically, mentally, or emotionally, desires of and sexual desires. And whereas instruction, discussion, and promotion of sexuality and gender content within the public schools has caused division of students, parents, and community members that hold different belief systems, whether it be of creed or religion or simple sexual content without parental permission. Be it therefore resolved, sexuality and gender instruction, discussion, and promotion be reserved solely for content in sexual education class, which requires parental permission and no consequences to the child for opting out of such class. And in such a case, where it must be inserted into a different course, parents must opt their child in to the instruction, discussion, or promotion without consequence for lack of participation and with alternative courses with a different path offered. Be it finally resolved, administrators shall be responsible to oversee the opt-in, opt-out forms, shall oversee appropriate alternative curriculum, and shall hold staff accountable to work in collaboration with parents as parents determine the children and determine the direction and care they seek for their children within the public schools that serve the needs of the pupils through the parents. That is the end of the resolution. The time is now. You have an opportunity and the need is now. The opportunity is here. We know that parents are shook up. We know that the community is shook up. And we urge you through our hurt, because people are hurt, parents are hurt, students are hurt, and I'm sure some of you are hurt with what's recently happened. With our children's safety as the #1 priority, we ask that you take this step forward and you bring resolution to protect our children, and you make sure that parents have the right in the protection of their children. So we ask you to look into this hard, and we would love to hear discussion on it afterwards. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is, I'm sorry, I'm not able to say the first name, Richardson? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Linda Richardson from Isabella County. Over a year ago, I saw that it was time to start attending school board meetings. In that amount of time, I have been able to hear several parents and citizens speak with concern over and over again, from open our school, quarantine, and masking to pornography in books, failing education rate, and sexuality and gender discussions. I feel as though many of them have pleaded with you repeatedly, and from what I've observed, if their beliefs did not align with your personal beliefs, you didn't care what they had to say. So much so that 68% of the stakeholders voted for optional masking. You voted to overturn that, hence the recall efforts. Parents are not crazy here. Parents are exhausted from fighting for their children and parental rights. Parents are done trusting you, and parents are concerned for their children. And while we should be talking about focus on education, it seems what many parents are concerned with is the safety of their students. I was here when a parent spoke of safety concerns and how we needed better staff code of conduct to protect student safety. At the next meeting, you minimized her concerns and said that in fact we have policies. Do we? Are you using these policies? Because it is clearly neither efficient or effective. You have employed staff that had PPOs against him for trespassing into a student's home multiple times and then broke a safety plan the student had. Yet you have staff code of conduct? Our kids deserve better. Now, after a booked sexual predator has had access to our children within the walls of this school, you now have a horrific reason to bring this community, parents, school, and most importantly, students' peace with resolution. Mount Pleasant Public Schools has employed a man that is now booked as a pedophile. Children have been groomed within the walls of the school. Parents have requested over and over to stop allowing sexuality and gender discussions. I have read the resolution that Moms for Liberty of Isabella County, Michigan is presenting. It is a solution on so many levels. It affirms that sexuality needs education do exist and is a deep discussion that shall require parental permission. Affirmation is also quite different than promotion, and the resolution will bring an end to the promotion and discussion without parental permission, creating a neutral environment that respects all children and establishes a safety net to prevent our children from being groomed into discussions by sexual predators. Please discuss the resolution tonight and consider adopting it into a policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Rick McGurk.
I have nothing else to add, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next is Jessica West.
Good evening, my name is Jessica Lapp. I live in Union Township and my son just graduated from the high school. With the discussion tonight about the SEAB membership and other concerns that have been raised tonight, I want to point out some confusion in our community and schools about the difference between sex ed and gender identity. Michigan law does require that if school districts include sex education in the curriculum, school boards must establish an advisory board to review all the sex education materials and curriculum. This advisory board must include parents, students, educators, clergy, and health professionals. Michigan law also provides an opt-out policy for the parents who wish to remove their children from any part of the sex education curriculum. Michigan law does not require schools or school boards to establish policies that prohibit the discussion of any aspect of gender or sexuality because some people think any mention of gender is inherently sexual. I served on the Sex Ed Advisory Board for Mount Pleasant Public Schools for 3 years and participated in multiple discussions about sex education curriculum and what does or doesn't fall under the purview of the sex education policies. The SEAB discussed various issues with state agency representatives, including the discussion of gender identity in literature and history classes. State agency representatives made it quite clear that gender identity, as it appears in literature, history, and other disciplines, is not sex education under the law. These are aspects of identity. Individual people, teachers, students, administrative people, parents, who express their gender identity or sexual orientation through clothing choices, hairstyles, requests for specific pronouns, etc., are expressing their identity. A gay person who mentions his or her or their same-sex partner in the classroom is not violating some rule about sex education. They are describing their spouse, their family. A piece of literature that includes a gay character is illustrating aspects of character and perfectly acceptable in the classroom. These are acceptable things to discuss in the classroom, not solely limited to sex education, because this is about identity. This does not deal with legal issues related to sex abuse, obviously, that have been raised here tonight. That's a completely different issue that the school board should take very seriously. Sexual orientation is part of your identity, it's part of my identity. It is not about sex, it's about who we are as individuals and independently. So I encourage the school board to refuse to accept this resolution that's proposed tonight because it is not at all in line with the state of Michigan legislation regarding sex education or with the Mount Pleasant public school policies. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Colette Hillman.
My name is Claudia Hammond. I am the parent of two 16-year-old twins that attend Mount Pleasant High School. Ms. Richardson is right. We are exhausted as parents. I think that's fair. I don't know when, I don't know, I know and I don't know when and how this started, but I just want to say, as a parent of two overly woke 16-year-olds, on its surface, you know, the resolution is not, it doesn't scare me on its surface, but paragraph 9 is really interesting to me. And the reason I say that is because I know that we have groups at this school that are designed to give kids that don't feel safe at home a safe place to talk about who they are, and how they feel about themselves. And continuing to police conversations that students have with teachers or trusted adults, we're going to lose some really incredible educators. I think of Alexia Kane, who I would be devastated if she was not a part of the school district. I think about Mr. Wergo and the way that he helped kids feel safe in his classroom by sharing his own safety, his own story. And he didn't do it in a way that was in your face and bold. He just had a quiet timeline on his wall that let kids know, if this is how you feel, this is a place where you can talk about it. I don't want teachers to have to feel like they have to police their own family lives. I don't want students to feel like they police their own family lives. Students are not the only ones who are dealing with gender and sexuality issues. They have parents. They have gay parents. They have transgender parents. They have bisexual parents. Like, all of this is taking place. We do not live inside a bubble or a vacuum. Now, I will say, as a parent, I also can fully empathize and agree with the idea that we need to have a pretty decent say in the way that our kids are being taught sex education. I applaud the board for opening up the membership of the SEAB. I think that's a great idea. I think this conversation needs to be had. I do not think that all the points in this resolution are negative or bad. I think there's actually probably a common ground that we can get to with this, but this seems like something better suited for a bigger conversation than just 3 minutes of a non-conversation with the school board and just comment sharing. So I would urge you to table this, have a conversation, take it to the SEAB, and see if there's something that we should be doing differently, or maybe we could implement, or what ways the statute, and this resolution can work together to make everybody kind of get to a happy medium or feel better about it. But I do not want to lose the amazing educators that we have by continuing to bulldog in a china shop our policies. Thank you so much for letting me speak, and have a good evening.
Thank you. Next is Jeff Bean.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jeff Bean. I'm a graduate. My wife and I went to school here at Mount Pleasant Public Schools. In full disclosure, I have to tell you that I have since moved 150 feet to the north, and I'm no longer in the Mount Pleasant School District. But I'm very concerned about the school district, and while I travel a lot, I like to try and keep up with as much as I can. First of all, I commend you for your service. I'm involved in a lot of government situations, and I'm involved in as a township supervisor for 20 years, and I understand that it takes a lot of work and a lot of commitment, and I commend you for your service in doing so. Now, I may not commend you for your opinion. Okay, we may have a difference in opinion, but that's what we all sit down for, to discuss issues and go through them and try and come up with solutions and become better informed and everything. Personally, I would be highly concerned if you did not pass this resolution. Now, I've already learned a couple of different things that I maybe have never been exposed to by sitting in this meeting, already hearing from some other people's, but it seems like a rather benign resolution. And as to the point of the previous lady who had mentioned about the teachers and how the teachers are working with gender issues with their students, isn't that the issue of counselors? Isn't that somebody that should be trained in that and doing that as opposed to an everyday teacher? I don't know the details of what came down on Friday night or anything with the gentleman that the accusations are being made of. Maybe he's not guilty, who knows? But do you have your children, do we have them exposed to be listening to those type of people? I think there are ways to get this handled. And if we can put it all out on the table, if you vote against this, or I guess whether you vote for this or against it, I'd be very appreciative. I would really much appreciate you explaining your reasons, because if we don't know the reasons, we don't grow, and we don't understand what's going on and why you felt the way you did, and it just festers and it keeps going on, and everybody gets feeling worse as time passes on. So that's the extent of my remarks, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Next, that brings us to the consent items. Starting off with the approval of the June 20th, 2022 regular meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes. Next is the approval of bills and the financial for $1,817,241.57. Is there a motion for the approval of the bills?
So moved.
Seconded?
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And then that moves us next to the MHSAA resolution.
In your board packet this evening, you have the annual resolution that we approved from the Michigan High School Athletic Association. It is confirming our membership for Mount Pleasant High School and Mount Pleasant Middle School for the 2022-2023 school year. So we're just asking that you approve this resolution this evening so that we can continue to be a member of the Michigan High School Athletic Association.
And this is a resolution, so therefore it's a roll call vote.
So moved.
Second.
Dana Calkins,
Yes.
Courtney Stegman, yes. Jessica Jordan,
Yes.
Sheila Murphy,
Yes.
Julie Kendall,
Yes.
Tim Odeker,
Yes.
Amy Beth, yes.
Okay, next that moves us to new hires.
There's one other, I'm sorry, there is, yep. Also along with athletics, as you know, we have gone through the process with our youth football organization to move the 7th and 8th grade football program into a Mount Pleasant Middle School program. This is something that's been in the works for a couple of years. This evening, we're bringing before you a cooperative agreement. This is agreement between Mount Pleasant Public Schools and Renaissance Charter School. This would allow 7th and 8th grade students that attend Renaissance to be a member of the Mount Pleasant Middle School 7th or 8th grade football team. Renaissance is right now in the middle of a process where they are joining MHSAA. They were not previously members, and then they would approve this cooperative agreement, giving the timing of when practices start. We're asking that our board go ahead and sign the cooperative agreement, showing an offer to those students that are currently involved in the city's youth football program, so that they would be able to participate as soon as Renaissance joins MHSAA officially, and then they would also approve the cooperative agreement.
How does this affect Sacred Heart students?
They have their own football program, their own middle school football
None of
program.
them play, okay.
Why is this just a boys' club? I see this saying it's a cooperative team for boys.
Well, I mean, girls have certainly played football over the years. That's just how this is laid out, that it is predominantly a boys' sport. But we definitely have had female members on our football teams over the years, and they'd be welcome to do that if they wanted to.
So the verbiage of this concerns me.
Okay. Are you speaking of the second page of the agreement where it has the chart?
Where
Or
actually, the number 1 saying that it's a
Oh.
team of boys.
Okay. So if we put a mark by both boys and girls,
I would feel better about that, yes.
I believe MHSAA recognizes football as a boys' sport, although they do allow females to
Because
participate,
for
just like we do.
For Title IX purposes, they have to.
You're absolutely right. Yes.
But your concern is noted, and like I said, we've always welcomed female athletes over the years. We've had a handful.
And I'm assuming that Renaissance students would not have an opportunity to play football if we don't play with us.
That is correct. With us moving the youth program into Mount Pleasant Middle School, if we don't form this cooperative agreement, those students wouldn't have any option. And so we want to make sure we know that for the most part, Renaissance students, after they complete 8th grade, enroll at Mount Pleasant High School. So we want to make sure that they have the opportunity to continue that sport if they want to do so.
And if I understand right, by us moving into the athletic group for 7th and 8th grade, that means our middle schoolers now will have to meet athletic eligibility and meet a code of conduct to be part of the teams, which was not the case now.
Right, that is correct. So they would be a part of our athletic code of conduct. They would be required to meet academic eligibility requirements as well as behavior requirements. So that's a real win for us that we can help get them involved in our sports and meet those requirements early on.
Are there any further questions? Okay. Is there a motion for the middle school football cooperative agreement as presented to us tonight?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes. Now we look to new hires.
Yeah, so we have several new hires tonight. I will start with our list of teacher new hires. We have Alessandro Cascarno, elementary teacher, 5th grade, McGuire. Elaine Emmerich, computer science teacher for McGuire. Caleb House, PE, and physical education and health at Mount Pleasant High School. Emma Longoria, music teacher, Mount Pleasant Middle School in McGuire. Natasha Minyard, math teacher at Mount Pleasant High School. Emily Packer, Spanish teacher, Mount Pleasant High School. Stacy Poindexter, art teacher, Mount Pleasant Middle School. And Macy Russell, English teacher, Mount Pleasant Middle School. I know Macy's in the audience tonight, but I'm not sure if anyone else is here. So, welcome to Macy. And that's our teacher list of new hires.
Is there a motion to accept the new hires as presented tonight?
So moved. Seconded.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes, and welcome to the district. Thank you very much.
Next, we have an administrative new hire. Stephanie Binder is here. Stephanie is joining us after teaching and being a principal for several years in St. Louis. She's worn lots of hats in that district, and we're excited to welcome her as our new state and federal programs director.
Is there a motion to accept Stephanie as the new state and federal programs director?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes. Welcome to the district. Thank you. And next we come to resignations.
Yes, for our resignations, we have Kayla Ailing, Lynn Heifel, Brian Cole, Karen Noel, Lily Reyes-Grenius, and Samantha Schauffer.
Is there a motion to accept the resignations as presented?
So moved.
Second.
I have a question. I have never seen so many resignations in the years that I have in the last year.
What's interesting, Sheila, is that a couple of the people on this list were just tired of our last board meeting. And that's kind of the nature of the game right now. Someone applies, they are willing to drive from Bay City, and then an opening in Bay City opens up. And it's the teacher shortage is here, and it's a revolving door.
Okay.
So luckily, we're hiring like crazy and trying to.
How many on here were that? How many of these on here were?
Two on this list were in that exact situation that were just hired on June 21st, or at our last board meeting, June 20th. And then I can't give specifics about everyone's life, but I can go through the list of, the fiance, the moving out of town, just life changes that sometimes when we're in a college town and we're able to attract those great fired up kids right out of college, and then, due to life and meeting significant others and lots of things like that, they head north and south, and
I know Dana
that's one of our
had brought up,
challenge.
that these exit interviews. I am really very.
Okay, we've got it ready to roll.
And I would like to see something.
Sure.
Even if it's just a data report to us as, these are due to this is, and it doesn't have to be every time, but some kind of thing is that, you know, they're moving on because of this, or, you know, are they unhappy with the situation here, or that kind of thing. I just, honestly, I haven't seen the turnover.
When I speak to my colleagues across the state in my role, they're experiencing the exact same thing. This is a round robin of teachers and administrators. There is a short supply of everyone that we need for these roles, and quite frankly, they can go other places and make more money. So we can provide as much information as given to us.
Well, and that would be a good thing to know. Are they leaving because we're not paying enough? Are they leaving because they're uncomfortable here? Are they leaving because, those are the kind of things I think, you know, we need to know, because maybe we need to put our resources someplace else if that's, I mean, but if we're having a turnover, and I understand, but, you know, I think we need to address the issue, maybe think a little out of the box or something, and see what we can do to attract them to keep them. Or maybe if you know, I don't know. But I think
That definitely has been our focus, especially through negotiations. Remember, we did quite a bit of work with the teacher scale. And as much as that's helped, I think, with our recruiting this summer, there are still multiple districts right around us that their step one is $5,000 more than ours. So if you're a young professional coming out of college, $5,000 makes a big difference for a first position.
Sheila, thanks for bringing that up. I think also, I mean, it's great to start with, whether it's a survey or a meeting face-to-face with someone. I think it can be very intimidating to meet with, and I'm not calling out that, I'm just saying, you meet with one person who happens to be the director of personnel, that can be intimidating. So do we form a small committee? Do we ask the person, hey, is there someone on board, someone in administration, someone, I mean, a small group like that, so we can actually get accurate information from those exit surveys.
And Dana, I'm going to add to this, one idea we discussed last time, and we tabled it for them, is to have a board member who could assign, or responsible for building community a year on a rotation basis, and that might be the go-to for exit interview for that year, that would allow us to have, you know, maybe more information straight, where we're not involved in the hiring process as board members, and maybe they might be more comfortable sharing in an exit interview. And I think, you know, what we discussed as this position could have multiple sides, where not only do we show the community we're invested, we're engaging with the schools, but we can also benefit as board members by gaining some of that information. And I know there were issues that were brought up last time for it. You know, there's assignments, especially I think time was mentioned, or maybe that might add too much to our place. But even if we realize, okay, well, if there's 7 of us and not all of us can commit, well, even if we gain a little bit, but that's better than nothing in my book. And so I would be open to considering, even if it's not perfect, at least trying to move in that direction.
I'd also think something even in an anonymous form.
Which is what we have.
Right, yeah. But, you know, I don't know. I just think, you know, we need to change something, because the turnover is, and when we lose the teachers, I mean, you can't replace experience. So. All right, on that note, that's all the discussion. So should we accept, there's a motion, and we'll vote on it then? To accept the resignation?
So was there a motion in the second?
Yeah.
All right, so all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And those resignations go through. Next, that brings us to the Board of Education discussion.
I had a couple things I was hoping to discuss tonight. So the first one is I was invited, I think we were all invited actually, to we get the name straight, it's a long name, the Great Lakes Bay Educator Consortium for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I attended today, and I thought I'd just kind of give you a couple points of some of the highlights of today. It made me very hopeful that we have a whole room of experts in that work that are willing to kind of tag along and help any school district in the area doing the kind of work that we are starting to do. And so what I thought was great is that we, it was very obvious in the room, we are not the only district struggling with these issues. They all are, and it was the same story, every district after every district. And so I think it's very important to know we're not alone. We're all facing the same difficulties, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's an entire body of people that are ready, trained, willing to help. And so we now know who they are. I have a list. I am very happy to share some notes with you, and I can put it in our drive. And so that was a big takeaway for me, the support that is ready for us. And along with this, I think I believe it was Friday or Saturday, our diversity, equity, and inclusion task force application was due, and I am very happy to say that we had 42 applicants. That definitely exceeded my expectations, and I was so proud of us that not only are we saying we're ready for it, but people were showing up. And so it's a good problem to have too many people, and it's a diverse list of applicants as well. It's not the same people that we keep seeing necessarily. I would argue the majority of the list, I have never met them. I am looking in the next couple weeks of establishing a transparent rubric on who gets onto that task force, so it's not a guess. It's not people wondering, well, why did I make it, why did I not make it? It might take us a couple weeks to read all the applications. I would like these applications to be scored by as many board members as are willing to do it. I know we're discussing a board retreat. Maybe that is the case where we can all sit, we'll score, have this be anonymous, and that way it's about as transparent as the process as we can make so that the task force get going early at the beginning of the school year. So I thought it was very good news. That's all I have tonight.
We had just closed out applications for the parent council as well. We got 24 applications. Sheila and I need to go through them. I think our biggest concern right now is just making sure that grades and schools are well represented. So that's the kind of representation we're going to be looking for. So yeah, I think we're happy too with the number of applicants that we got. So thanks to everybody who applied.
And then I will bring up that obviously we've had a resolution which was just given to us, but I do think that we shouldn't fluff it off. We obviously have an issue. There's a gentleman that was arrested. That does not mean they're guilty, but assuming that he was guilty, then what can we do as a school board to make sure we're catching these things before this kind of thing happens? Maybe there's nothing, maybe there is something, and that's something we need to look at. But I also think that we should all look at the resolution that they presented to us, discuss it. I think we should have, if we agree with part of it, don't agree with part of it, don't want to do anything with it, but I think we should put it on the agenda for the next meeting, and I think we should all look at it, and we should all have opinions on it, and then decide, whether we want to do anything with it or not. I think that would be, it was brought up, both sides, and I think it should be discussed and should be explained why we are or not going to do anything with it. And I also had somebody ask me to, many times people come to the school board, we make comments, and then it just goes away. They were asking if we could, at the end, like we're having the discussion now, maybe at least say, hey, we heard you, and, we will either put it on the agenda or if there's problems with it or whatever, but I think people just want to feel like they're being heard. So if we could kind of make up, I've been trying to do that. Whenever anybody brings anything up, I've been trying to bring it up at the end and get, hey, we are hearing you, and we should discuss it, and we should make some kind of a decision on it one way or the other, and explain ourselves for it. So that's where I'm at. I just think, I only did a rough look at it. I have no idea. I would really have to read it and look at it before, but I think we should put it on the agenda to discuss what we like, what we don't like, and whether we think there's anything worthwhile.
I would agree, Sheila. I think there's some great points in here. I clearly have a bias one way or the other. I don't see it other than, I didn't like, that sounds awful. I have a need for more explanation about paragraph 9. I also, and again, I'm going to say that I have an emotional reaction to this. And I want to make sure that we are not equating predatory behavior to sexuality. And I've heard that. Maybe it wasn't intended, but I sure heard that. I think there's a lot of good that comes out of diversity, whatever kind of diversity it is. But I think, and again, this is what I'm hearing. I would like us to be careful equating diverse lifestyles, thoughts, etc., with criminal behavior.
I would like to thank you for saying that. That was something that was on my mind as well. To Sheila's point, I think we need to be really careful. I mean, we have a coincidence here between...
Oh, yeah, I didn't relate the two.
Well, but I think we need to be very careful and conscious of keeping them separate, I guess I would say. Okay. We have a coincidence of, an arrest and this resolution, and, I heard them being, treated as one issue in some ways, in a way that I think is not productive and is potentially harmful.
And Sheila, I didn't hear you say that.
And I did kind of lump them both in at the same time, and that wasn't intentional. And I honestly, the people that talk to me, I don't get the feeling that that's where it's coming from. And I don't think that that's the issue. I think the issue is what's being taught, the ages it's being taught, or the exposures that are being there. And this is just one instance of an exposure that could we possibly have.
And I think it's a great idea for us to have
it needs
conversation.
To be discussed, yes.
And I, for one, need that 2 weeks to really gather my thoughts. So I'm an emotional person, and it would do no good if I had any, if I went running off of the mouth of this.
I want you to kind of inform that conversation that can happen at the next time, or, whenever we put it on the agenda. If the Sex Ed Advisory Board could share with us the conversation that happened with the state of Michigan, and there was, my understanding, if I remember right, that there was some communication to establish what was sex ed and what was gender identity. So we can, have these documents from the state and make sure we're all talking about the same thing. That would help me.
We can ask Kate to come back, but I think that I can probably speak to that as well as she can. And if I'm missing something, Linda could maybe give me a heads up, because she has been part of those conversations too. And I just want to say, it's totally relevant to what you just said. Of course, these conversations are not new conversations. Right. They have been going on all year, if not before that. So, yes.
And I think we just had the discussion that sex education and the gender issue are two completely different things. And so the problem, I don't think, is so much with the sex education, because that is already being dealt with on a parental basis. And there is an opt-out or opt-in section for that. I think the problem is the gender identity and that whole thing, and how it's being addressed or not being addressed, or at what age it's being addressed, and that kind of thing. I think it's what the kids are being exposed to and how they're being exposed to it, not necessarily who's doing it. Yeah. What I'm saying is, it's the content, not the people.
When I read through the resolution, I think it's broader. So to me, the question is, how do we as a district teach identity?
What do we?
What work do we do to help a student become an individual, that know who they are and feel strong about who they are,
But
so
I
they
think
can be successful and empowered. And gender is one piece of it. There's our many components to this journey. And just to narrow it down a conversation about identity to one factor, that's just one factor of many things that make up who we are as individuals.
And I would also add that, I feel like I get the sense that when people are talking about, talking to students, especially young students, about, identity or gender identity, it's not teachers quizzing kids on their gender identity. It's having conversations about our families, or it's having conversations about the story we just read. It's having conversations about, what we just read in our history textbook. So, like, from my standpoint, obviously this is a larger conversation. It's going to be difficult, if not impossible, to draw any kind of bright line between, what's admissible and what's not admissible. And I mean, we're talking about gender. I feel like when we talk about gender, we tend to be assuming we're talking about, non-binary people or transgender people. Well, cisgender people have a gender too. So, are we not going to talk about men? Are we not going to talk about women? Like, it gets really complicated really fast. So, I'm happy to have conversations about this. I think it's good for us to have conversations about this. But, it's going to be complicated, and it's going to continue to be complicated. But, I'm glad that we're having these conversations in public.
I guess I would also just want to ask to Jen and Linda, and it might be something, but like, what are we already doing? And then what within this is within our realm of allowability? And where are the state rules kind of setting some of this stuff? If they have rules on what we can pursue, what we can't pursue. Because I know first and foremost we wanted to stay within that for the state as well. We wanted to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing in that way too. So I think that would be some further information I personally would need as we're moving forward with some of these discussions of what's already being done, and then to make sure we're staying in compliance.
And I think our staff would appreciate that, just have the conversation to help them and what they're thinking and what they're doing as a reflection of what the community is. And I think that's an important thing. It's the community, our community, right? So it's just not one component of it, it's the entire community. So taking on those things and listening to all those people. And that's the other thing I wanted to comment is several people kept saying that we aren't listening to them as they speak. We are always listening to them as they speak. I think it's interesting that they think that we're not. And so I just want them to understand that we're always hearing what they're saying, and we're all listening and taking in what they are saying. And so we hear what they're saying. We may not act on what they're saying. As one gentleman said, our opinions would be different. And that's where we as board members can share our opinions, but we come together as a unit, as a conglomeration of who we are, and make our determination. But we are listening. We do hear what they're saying. And we listen to many groups, not just to those who speak at the public comment component of a board meeting. We're always having people sharing their thoughts and their opinions and their ideas of what we should do or where directions that we should go. And it's our function, and I think I would like to give kudos to everyone. So I know how well everyone does listen here. We're very lucky. I think you are very good listeners. And reaching out and being open. Sometimes listening to what people have to say can be a challenge, but I think we always take it in the positive light. But I do think it would be an interesting conversation to have, and I think it would be helpful to our staff as you have a conversation. I'm not sure about whether a resolution per se, because I don't know how we would enforce, and that was the concerns I have, saying that it's the principal's job to enforce. So I have some concerns. How do you implement a policy like that? So that's fine.
Is there anything else that anybody has to discuss tonight?
I have one last thing. I just want to recognize the state legislature for actually coming forward and actually determining and creating a budget for us to work off. Please note that we've had our budget in for a month now, and so it's nice of them to catch up to where we are. But I also want to give them recognition for everything that they've done, because they've been finally funding public education in the direction that we've been asking for decades upon decades upon decades. So we can actually implement programs and do things, much like many of the things we talked about tonight would not be able to happen unless we have a budget that's driven by the state. And the legislature and they all came to consensus. Granted, a little late in my opinion, but nonetheless, consensus. So I just wanted to.
Am I wrong, or is this a record high budget?
As a record high. However, we need to keep in mind that a lot of it's federal funds that have come in, and so it is not a permanent funding source. As always, it changes every year.
And I just have one really quick thing to add as I look in the back and see all the bags. I remember our food distribution starts tomorrow. We're able to once again distribute meals, 7 lunches, 7 breakfasts at a time for each child, 0 to 18 if they are a special education student up to age 26. We're doing it out back here between 11 and 1 every Tuesday starting tomorrow until school starts. So we're really excited to be able to bring that back to our families. We had it the last couple of summers and weren't able to do it because of changes in federal legislation and it just changed back. So now we can do it again starting tomorrow. So, families that are in need, please have them stop by tomorrow between 11 and 1. And we do still have the on-site meals too, but we think this is a little more popular.
Anything else anybody would like to add? Not seeing any, I call this meeting adjourned.